Queasy and Veno just won FNCS by a ridiculous margin, winning 6 out of the 12 possible games. Here's how they did it. Veno and Queasy go ahead and land at Kinjutsu Crossing, and what they do immediately after getting a few chest spawns is go ahead and spread out and claim space. They're doing this so they can get early surge and basically control the entire southeast corner of the map here. The biggest part of Veno and Queasy's game plan is the fact that they try to go ahead and spread out to get early surge on other teams, and then go ahead and get the double purple katanas. Having purple katanas is so underrated, it makes your rotate so much easier, especially when you have 2 of them. Veno spends this entire part of the early game just sitting around farming surge, while Queasy goes ahead and does the same and claims his top building on Kinjutsu. These guys are basically just trading all the extra heals that they have from the flank and from these extra chests that they get inside their building to be as high as possible on these early zone surges. Another thing they do very well is they take it in turns in terms of who is getting surge. You see here, Veno goes up top and sits and gets surge, while Queasy goes down below and farms and gets even more surge on other people that are rotating nearby. Now on third zone, Queasy and Veno are one of the few teams that doesn't always try to force their cash. They'll only go for their cash if it's in a good position for them, and they know that they can reach it and leave themselves in a good position afterwards. These guys have enough heals and early surge, they don't need to get it every single game, but in a game like this where it's completely free, they'll go ahead and grab it. Another thing they do that is very unique is instead of just sitting on the cash itself, they spend time trying to get extra surge while they're capturing their cash. Because of the fact that they're controlling this whole southeast Deadside, they're one of the few teams that can actually do this. Veno and Queasy are also one of the only teams in this lobby that are split basing. What split basing is where one player, so you can see here, Queasy, is going ahead and controlling this mid-map late position right here, while Veno is on a completely separate angle. As you can see, as Queasy spots these players rotating in, Veno is on a completely separate angle over towards Deadside on a hill boxed up, and you can just farm surge and crossfire this team as they rotate in. This means that these guys are going to have by far some of the best surge in the lobby because they're playing 2 separate positions. One very nice thing that Veno does here is instead of waiting for zone to show up and possibly get held, is he decides to go early. As you can see, he waits until there's no more surge tags available, and then he rotates early and katanas and then regroups with Queasy. Another one of the strongest aspects of these guys' gameplay is the fact that they constantly refarm. As you can see here, Veno is not happy unless he has cap mats, and while he is doing this and refarming as much as possible, Queasy is still just up here getting surge tags the entire time. Another very small thing that you guys can do in mid-game rotates is just trying to rotate into a power position that has extra key chests. You can see here, unless this other team gets key master straight away, Veno is now able to go ahead and get a gold pump, which he's going to use a lot later on, as you can see. Another thing that Veno and Queasy do very well is always taking Bush Warrior just to trade surge as much as possible. As you can see here, there's still 600 above, but Veno is just trading surge for other teams, so when he gets cracked, he can now get back to full HP very quickly. They never carry minis just because of how good Bush Warrior is. You can see he goes ahead and gets back to 150 HP, and then now as they continue their mid-game rotate, Queasy's going to drop him a big, and now both be 200 HP without wasting any of their slurps or any of their splashes. One thing these guys do extremely well is the fact that they're never, despite landing on edge map spots, being the last team rotating out. They're pretty much always going ahead of these other teams and looking over each other's backs as they rotate and get themselves early into zone. Queasy and Veno absolutely abuse Deadside in all of their games where possible. As you can see here, Veno gets a nice hold kill on some people coming in on Edge of Storm, and after confirming this kill and realizing there's nobody else there, he goes ahead and rotates to it, and then take a look at how they plan out this next rotate. He gets all these extra mats, and then as you can see here, there's a huge Deadside that's been created from the previous zone, as well as a Deadside down here, which is where the zone is likely to play into, and that's where they want to go ahead and aim to. That means they're going to be completely isolated from the other players in the lobby, which is really good when you're 900 above surge. You can see they go ahead and play Edge of Storm right here, and then as they continue their rotate forward, Queasy goes ahead and pauses on these rocks for a second, refarms a little bit, and look at all these teams coming in, white lining it basically, while Queasy and Veno are going around the edge of the map and putting themselves towards Deadside. He does a nice katana rotate, slides down the hill, gets himself completely on his own down here, and now these guys have basically unlimited access to Deadside while being able to refarm their mats as well. Now, as we come into 8 zone, these guys have an absolutely free Deadside to rotate through and get to Deadside of the next zone. These guys basically play Deadside of 7th to get into the Deadside of 8 zone as well, which is so broken for saving mats and not taking damage. What do you know? The other team that is using Deadside this game is Taste and Immersash, doing the exact same thing as Veno, trying to wrap their way in through Deadside. However, Veno and Queasy very smartly here realise they don't want Taste and Immersash to get ahead of them, so they time a nice rotate, they go at the top of their cones so they can't get seen, and they use the tree line of sight to be blocked off as they go fully into Deadside and get down here. You can see just how isolated these guys are every single game that they're playing and how far away they are from other players at all points. Now, as we get into first moving, let's take a look at how these guys are going to go ahead and rotate. Instantly, they're ready for zone swap, and what do you know? They go ahead and abuse Deadside and get themselves towards front side from this Deadside position. As you can see, they go ahead and pause in this old base where this zone just played into, and there's absolutely nobody. And now they've got a really easy free rotate. And one very crucial thing that they do here is instead of going and swapping to the other side of the zone, they stick to this Deadside and they stick to this left-hand side for the entirety of first moving. As you can see, they've got a very free katana here. However, they make sure to do it out into storm where nobody can see them so they don't take damage. Put themselves again on left-hand side of zone. Pause for a second, and then now, after they're in this front side position here, they're going to start to layer up and get themselves into a good spot on a high layer. Alright, now let's go ahead and take a look at how they take height in a load of different games. They won 6 games from high ground. Let's go ahead and take a look at how they take height in different scenarios for you guys. Absolutely every single one of Veno and Queasy's height takes just comes from scouting out and having some awareness on high ground and realizing what you can do on high ground. You might remember that earlier, Veno and Queasy were looking up at that team on the hill and just taking some shots at them, burning their mats away. And then right here, halfway through first moving, Veno spots that high ground isn't very well connected. So he goes ahead and ends out the back of his tarp and shoots them out. And instead of being active and trying to fight this height team or 50th in them right now, instead, he just goes ahead and Katana's front side. Malibu and Thomas HD are a team that always just tries to full send and fight the people on height and beam them with pulse rifles and stay full. But Veno is just completely happy here, playing mid ground for a few seconds and then scouting at height again. Just taking a little peek, looking, okay, nobody up on height, let's get full HP and let's execute this height take. And how do they do this? First of all, they go out the back of their box. They can't get seen by somebody possibly being up on height. So this allows them some more scouting. And Veno's going to go ahead and Katana up 3 times and get really high up in the air. And Queasy's only going to go ahead and do 1. You don't want to be taking height from the exact same position in a duo. Instead, you want to have a split angle in case he does try to fight one of you, the other one can shoot in the back. So Queasy lands backside, starts ramping up and protecting himself. And Veno goes ahead and Katanas up 3 times and lands front side and then starts ramping up and trying to get up to this old high ground position. It's a very nice bang on this other player right here to stop him going up height. And then now he's connected up on height. And it's basically a guaranteed win because of the mats that these guys have and because of how well set up they are on height. Now the next type of high ground take that Veno and Queasy do quite simply here is just chopping out height when they're not established very well. So you can see these guys are connected to second height, which is what Veno and Queasy are playing. They chop them out, and on this situation here on zone swap, Queasy and Veno know that no other players are really going to look at them because they're going to be focused on rotating. So what do they go ahead and do? They go ahead and place some ramps like this and look up on height. And what is this player likely to do? Of course, as he gets chopped out, he's going to go ahead and jump into the open, exactly like he does here. And then he goes ahead and Katana's front side, and he gets insanely lucky to survive here. But of course, at this point, he's basically forced into playing mid ground and not being able to contest height at all. Now, how do Queasy and Veno immediately take height compared to the first game, where they took a little bit later on? First of all, Veno goes ahead and Katanas towards front side and then starts building up from there. And while he's doing this, Queasy does a very smart play, which is to pop a slurp back in the storm and then go ahead and triple Katana onto these old high ground builds, as you can see here, lands on top of them, and now these guys have 2 separate established high ground points where they're connected to each other, and it's basically impossible for them to have high ground taken off them. Now the last type of height take that Veno and Queasy go ahead and do is quite simply just taking height, holding it versus other teams. So how do they do it? First of all, is they pressure teams on backside, make sure that these guys are marked and they can't actually go up for height at all with this tracker pistol, and then they go ahead and land on a high layer right here, and Veno goes ahead and does this first, and he makes sure to be very well connected with metal, as you can see here. And what does Queasy do? A very classic mistake that I would say like 99% of pro players would do is just land on your teammate and start ramping up with him. But what Queasy does very smartly is he drops down, makes sure he's well established and connected to a separate mid-ground team, as you can see right here, and then goes ahead and starts building up separately to Veno. Now, even as they're on the same sort of layer together, they're still building up for height separately. And this is really important because, as you can see, Veno is only held up by 1 brick stair and Queasy is only held up by 1 metal stair. But for any other team in the lobby to go ahead and spot these weaknesses, it's quite hard for them to do so because they're building up separately. Instead, they're going to go ahead and look down here where it's pretty much 4 metal builds to chop out height at the minimum. So as you can see, these guys go ahead and build up fully up for height. Now they're well established and connected together. Queasy goes ahead and starts ramping up like this fully, and then starts pressuring other people and immediately just looks to get shots on players, mark them, and create that HP disadvantage, which means that these guys can hold height very easily. Alright, let's go and take a look at how they hold height in other games, as well as what they do in final moving. Now, how did Queasy and Veno actually go ahead and hold height in these 6 games after they've taken it? Now, it's not just about being set up on height and being able to hold it and spraying non-stop. It's all about how much pressure you can put on the other teams. So first of all, take a look at how the fact that Queasy is playing edge zone at all points right here, as you can see. He's fully playing edge of zone and just spraying these other players non-stop. And with the Shadow Tracker pistol, it means that they've got a marker on top of the head, so Veno can go down and actively fight them. You can see here, he gets this knock. Veno's going to go ahead down and start pressuring and box fighting these players. And instead of just applying pressure from 2 players spraying somebody's cone from above, like in this case here, instead they now have Veno who's going ahead and actively getting on walls and actively taking shotgun shots on these players. Now, the next big thing for these guys' high ground success is the fact that Queasy isn't just simply staying directly above the other players. Instead, he is playing edge of zone the entire game. At no point is he just in the middle of zone like this, where he can't get shots on these players below. Instead, he's always just pressuring from a side angle, being able to tag people and mark them for Veno to go ahead and frag them out. Now, the reason that Veno and Queasy win so many games from high ground is because they're not just passively sitting on height and letting the game go into heal off, which of course they could win in a situation like this where they're fairly stacked on heals, but that always relies on the other players on low ground not having more heals than them. So what do they could do? Veno is extremely aggro at just dropping off height and murdering absolutely everybody in the lobby and putting themselves into a situation where they don't even need to let the game go into heal off. As you can see here, Veno goes ahead and just sneaks down and is getting extra mats that you can possibly bring up to Queasy. Or what you can go ahead and do with these extra mats is just use them to box fight other players and force them down. Whenever you force other players down, that means that they're going to be forced into fighting each other, which is going to make your game 10 times easier to win from height. As you can see here, he's really active on just pressuring threats, and Queasy's doing the exact same thing from this sort of sky-based position up on height. He's just spraying other players and letting Veno do the dirty work and get next to them and pressure them out of their tarps. Another thing that Veno is very good at is just taking out solos as they're split from the duos. Whenever people run out of mats, they're always going to play split from their duos, unless they're a very well-structured duo. And he's really good at finding those kills and then using those kills into getting more kills. You can see he gets a slurp from that player right there, and then continues on his rampage, dropping down and basically forcing all these other players to fall down. Now, as we get into the final stage of the game, like 30 seconds left, this is the point in time where Veno is very cautious while dropping down. He doesn't want to just get greedy and just hop down onto low ground and start fighting with these players. Instead, he sits above them. And one thing that he does very nicely here is, even as he drops down right here, he's very cautious that there's nobody perhaps playing a med miss back in Storm that could flank height and mess up Queasy's game. Queasy's game here is just basically set up on height, guaranteed a win with heal off. Well, Veno has to make sure that that win is guaranteed and then play for kills second. So as you can see, he's very cautious, double scouting everything, making sure everything's secure. And then as all these players are fighting down on low ground, and finally it's a left turn 2v2 situation, this is basically unwinnable for this other duo because of how quickly Veno is dropping down. As you can see, he just drops straight down onto the walls, and very nicely here, he goes back in Storm. He's not trying to cut them off in front side. He goes back in Storm, catches them on an unexpected angle, which allows him to win this 1v1, and then now, simply put, just wait, good crosshair placement, and takes out eye drop straight away. And at this point in time, Queasy's done absolutely nothing and just sat up on height and got that secured win.